This presentation is to briefly explain what expository essays are and why you would use them and what types there are of expository essays. Now, there are other types of essays than expository essays. You've already written a narrative essay, which is an essay whose purpose is to tell a story in order to make a point. Later on, you will write a persuasive essay whose purpose is to get the reader to change his thinking, feeling, or his behavior about a certain topic. But for now, we're looking at expository essays. An expository essay exposes something, sort of in the way an expose might reveal something about a certain celebrity's personality. Only the idea of an expose suggests that something was deliberately hidden, or that it's furtive or deliberately covered up. And that works in, grocery store newspapers, but in an academic essay, you're not really there to bring anybody out of the closet. It's more that you're taking a complicated or a complex issue and making it clear to a reader who doesn't understand the thing as well as you do. So, to review, the purpose of an expository essay is to explain something or make it clear, and you can do that in a number of ways. The writer can explain something by making it clear, as in exposing it, stripping the covers off, taking its clothes off, taking the hood off of an engine. That would be exposing it. And you could also expose a topic by comparing it to something else more familiar that the reader might know and that will help you to make him understand your complicated topic better. You might also choose to analyze and describe the parts of something, because in describing the parts, it may make the reader better able to envision the complicated whole that you're talking about. You might also classify your topic as being one of a certain type of thing. For example, if we were talking about rocks, and you know that there are igneous and metamorphic rocks, and I forgot the other ones now, but if you could explain this rock as being an igneous rock and then explain what igneous means, you would be making that rock clearer to your audience. Or in some cases, you might simply define what the topic means. In some areas, the definitions for things may be legal definitions, in which case they have to meet certain criteria, or it may be a medical diagnostic topic, and the doctor actually has a book that he looks at to see whether this list of 5 or 7 or 3, whatever characteristics is present, and if so, then you can diagnose this person as having whatever the disease might be. And finally, you might explain something better by explaining what caused it to happen. It's causation, in the sense that whatever your topic is the effect of certain things that happened that caused it to come about. It's the writer's responsibility to choose the method of exposition that best fits the topic to be explained. Here's a list of some sample topics: pandemics, the recent fire in Colorado Springs, clinical depression, or a dictator's rise to power. In the case of pandemics, what is it that would separate a pandemic out from just a really common case of the flu, for example? How do we know when bad is bad enough to be a pandemic? Well, the Centers for Disease Control has a fairly specific definition of what constitutes a pandemic. So definition might be the best way to organize this particular essay. On the other hand, the recent fire in Colorado Springs, well, we already know the definition of a fire. That's pretty easy. So what would be a better way of fully explaining the recent fires in Colorado Springs? One possibility might be to examine the elements of its impact. How many people were killed? How much land was involved? How many trees were destroyed? And so on. Or another way of doing it might be to look at and explain what caused that fire to happen, or what conditions had to occur for it to be as severe as it was. Now, with clinical depression, depression is something that a lot of people know, but and everybody gets down now and then. Everybody may even stay depressed for some days, but a clinical depression is something that a doctor diagnoses, and that diagnosis is based on a list of symptoms present in a book called the DSM-4 or DSM-5, whatever it is now. And the list may say, in order to define clinical depression, these 5 things must be present in the patient for a period of 2 weeks or longer. So that would be a clear definition type of organization. And finally, a dictator's rise to power. What comes to my mind immediately on that one was what caused this unpopular person to be able to take power in a country? What were the conditions or the circumstances that allowed this to happen? So again, it's the writer's responsibility to decide how he can best explain this complicated thing. And not all writers will take the same approach. That's fine. If our topic were obesity in America, different writers might take different approaches to explaining obesity. One person might take the approach of, well, what is obesity? And again, in medical practice, there is a very specific definition of obesity, and it has to do with the percentage the person is overweight compared to some established set of norms. So that would be one way of explaining obesity. Another might be to look at what conditions or what circumstances in America cause Americans to be obese at the rate that we are obese at this point in time. And yet another might be to define obesity in terms of the actual impact being overweight has on Americans. What happens to the heart, what happens to the liver, what happens to one's activity level, etc. With global warming, the thing that comes first to mind for me would be what causes global warming? Or what has caused global warming. Somebody else may take the approach of what is the impact of global warming? So it's getting warm, so what? Well, there's a lot of things that are so what, and that would be an approach to an exposition about global warming. And finally, another example, the current rate of unemployment in America is a topic that somebody might have. And the first and easiest one here is to talk about the unemployment rate. How many Americans, of the total number of Americans that are looking for work, actually have work? And in reading about this issue, you soon find that even defining what out of work means is complicated. So this is a subject that lends itself very well to exposition. Now, in the normal world, which is not the classroom, ordinarily the writer starts with something that he wants to talk about, his topic, and then thinks to determine what method would help him best explain his topic. Would it be defining it, definition? Would it be classification? Would it be analysis? Would it be comparison and contrast? Or would it be looking at causes and effects? So that's a brief overview of what exposition is. Exposition is exposing something or making it clearer or more understandable to an audience that doesn't know as much about the topic as you may know.